Hey, Wine.
Hello. Oh, hey, Mike.
I guess you went on a vacation. Hope you had a good vacation.
Thanks. It was like 2-3 weeks ago. Yeah. Just a break from the hassle of everyday work.
Nice. Hey, Hongkai. Oh, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Hello, Mike.
Hello.
Hi, Ryan, right?
Yes. Hey, Hong Chai. How are you?
I don't see. Yeah, good. Thank you. How are you doing?
I think your video is not very smooth.
Yeah, I can see your video.
Hello.
Hello, Jimmy.
Hello.
Hi there, folks. How are we doing?
Wonderful. Well, how about you?
I'm doing okay. It is a nice low humidity, 84 degrees here, which is pretty decent for this time of year.
Yeah, that's it's a little warm for me, to be honest.
Yeah, well, we have plenty of AC here.
Yeah, that's great. That's critical.
There's no summer in the Carolinas with no AC. Not a thing. All right, we can get started in a couple moments here. I think we only have 2 agenda items today. All right, why don't we go ahead and get started? So we have 2 agenda items today. The first one is follow up on the discussion about archiving KubeFed. The responses to the threads that we had on the mailing list around archiving this project were basically universally supported. So that is the action that we're going to proceed on. The next step on that action is to make an announcement that contains specific information about when that will happen. That is an action item for Jeremy and I to do after this meeting, certainly before our next meeting. But we wanted to give a thank you to everybody that took part in that discussion. Thank you to everybody that helped to develop KubeFed, and reiterate with folks that archival is not deletion. If anyone is currently using KubeFed, the source code isn't going anywhere. It can be forked. You can do whatever you want with it. So I think the one thing that pardon me, I need a drink of water. One moment. All right, that was quite the operation because I'm wearing a mask, but I'm all hydrated now, so I'm good. The one thing that we wanted to give some treatment to is that there was one of the themes in the discussion that we had is to provide guidance for folks and send them to other projects that are in the same functional area. I think between Jeremy and I, we are a little concerned about providing guidance that appears to be a recommendation from the SIG, that we don't want that material to rot. There are a lot of old materials on the internet dealing with Kubernetes Federation that have rotted that we don't want to add to the noise there. So what we were thinking of doing is to have a mailing list thread, as we'll have for the announcement, where people can put their own pointers on there to other projects that are in that functional area, and that will have a tombstone commit as the last commit to KubeFed before it gets archived that references that mailing list discussion. So we have maybe more of a living document in the sense of we'll have this thread that we can keep having discussion on and provide updates to, but we also get the advantage of we don't potentially give people confusing advice that may rot over time that appears to be from the SIG. I think that's EOF from me. Jeremy, do you want to say anything on top of what I've said?
Yeah, I think you kind of covered all of it, but yeah, the real thing here, I think, is that we just don't have a SIG sponsored replacement for KubeFed, and that's okay. We also want people to be able to discover those replacement projects, but they'll change. There's many of them. We don't necessarily have a favorite, so this is Paul and I were thinking that this just makes a good way to make sure that they're all discoverable without kind of sending the wrong message about SIG stance, or basically like our understanding of these projects. But really, want to thank everyone who's contributed to KubeFed. It has helped a lot of people. Clearly it's still in use and the code's not going anywhere. So this isn't a statement on KubeFed as a whole. It's mostly just to set expectations to the community about like what level of support and future development can be expected. But yeah, by all means, if you're using KubeFed, keep using KubeFed. Fork it, do as you wish with it. Like, it's the community's project, and it's not going anywhere.
Okay. I don't think that came as a surprise to anybody. I don't see any raised hands, so why don't we proceed on to the next agenda item? And I believe that's Peter Schurman. I hope that's a acceptable pronunciation of your last name here.
Hello, Paul.
Hey.
I will raise my hand, but
Sure. Oh, my bad. Sorry about that. Sorry, Peter. Just have to hold your horses a minute or two.
Yeah, and I think we have two CNCF projects now. And one of them, you might know, Kamada, it's inherits a lot of the concept from the KubeFed. As mentioned by Jimmy, at the mail group. He said Kamala is the native successor of a Kubernetes. Should we add some content to Kubernetes to should we add some content to the Kubernetes README as part of the alternatives?
So that's a great question. Let's talk about what that looks like. So what I think our plan is currently is that we will have a final commit that goes into KubeFed before it's archived that has a link to the announcement of the archival. So what I'll ask you to do is when that announcement goes out, to reply with the information that you'd want people to have about Karmata and any other project that you felt was relevant. And that will be the way that we let people discover those other projects. So for example, I'd rather do that than to mention any project explicitly in the KubeFed README, because if the passage of time brings things like maybe someone gets a better idea and makes like Karmata v2 or something, that we don't have a rotten link that's in an archive project. So the advantage of pointing to that mailing list thread is that we can update and say, oh, hey, there's this new project that if you like all of these other projects, you're really gonna love the Frobulator 2.0 or whatever. Does that make sense to you as a way to steer people to other projects?
Yeah, I get it. There will be a announcement mail, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I got it.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Did that address what you were wondering about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Paul.
No problem. Any other questions, comments, etc. around KubeFed? Okay. All right. Sorry for that false start, Peter. You can have the floor. Peter's here to talk to us about stateful set migrations across clusters. It's CAP 3335, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
Go ahead, Peter. Would you like me to enable screen sharing for you?
I just posted a link to the CAP in the chat, and I think we could just talk through it. There is this weird bug that I've got in the past where I can't talk if I'm presenting, so.
Okay, well, that's important. So check the chat if you want to see the link. Go ahead, Peter.
Cool. Yeah, so I'm just here to discuss this CAP and bring it to the SIG leads. And our goal here is to see if we can get this as an alpha feature in 126. So high level, asking for lead opt-in to pursue an alpha feature. Some of you may have seen the demo that Alexis and I presented back in July for SIG Multicluster, which was using this CAP as a building block to allow a stateful set to be migrated across clusters. And so we're looking for SIG Multicluster to sponsor this, even though some of the code, most of the code is in SIG apps domain. We think that this use case aligns much better with SIG Multicluster. So SIG apps is still a participating SIG. We're aligning the sponsoring SIG with SIG Multicluster.
You mentioned that there's overlap functionally with like code that SIG apps currently maintains. Have you had any discussions with them, and like what kind of receptivity have you gotten on the idea of the CAP from SIG apps?
Yeah, so we brought this to SIG apps. I think it was in June. We had a discussion with them. Their general feedback was these changes don't seem that controversial. They seem rather like simple in terms of an API change. It is one field that's changing on this spec for a stateful set. And then, yeah, there's some logic changes in terms of ordinal creation for stateful set replicas, but all of the changes are occurring in the stateful set controller. I think their main feedback was regarding the use of this KEP feature in isolation. And that's where the SIG multicluster story becomes much more relevant. This KEP by itself, in an isolated in a single cluster is not as interesting. There is this use case of migrating across namespaces, which is captured in the KEP. But I think that the multi-cluster story is much more compelling in terms of allowing a user to move a stateful set, be more flexible, support multi-cloud, that sort of thing.
And you were looking, your goal was to have this feature at alpha in the next KK release. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
So the enhancement freeze is pretty soon, so that's why we're discussing it today.
Yeah. I will call out for you and the benefit of everybody else on this call that this would be the first time that SIG Multicluster had sponsored a change to one of the controllers that is within Kubernetes. So one thing that I want to personally make sure of is that we don't fail to observe some necessary form or community norm, because I haven't done that before. Jeremy, I don't know if you're familiar with that. Like in the early lifetime of SIGs, I was very active in a number of other SIGs, but it's been quite a while. So what I'd want to do is make sure that I personally understood everything that you need to do to be a good community member and citizen there. But like it sounds great that you've already spoken with SIG apps and that you've got buy-in already on that idea. That is basically my only reservation, which is not something that is a reason not to do things. It's just a reason to proceed carefully, knowing that you're very interested in getting this in for the next Kubernetes release. Jeremy, I don't know if you have any thoughts you want to add around that, but that's the danger for me, is like unwittingly doing something that gives you a false start, or like pushes you to the next release because we didn't check the right box on the right form or something. EOF for me.
My understanding, so from what I'm getting from you, Peter, please correct me, is basically SIG apps is kind of supportive of this change, but they're looking for a strong use case. And basically our role here wouldn't be so much driving this change in SIG apps, because that would still be on SIG apps. It would be to basically say, we have a real community focused use case for this feature that we want to develop that depends on this. And so that would be basically us saying that this, this demo that we saw back in July of the stateful set migration is something that SIG Multicluster thinks is important and we want to develop, which, from my perspective, I feel very comfortable saying. Like, I think this is an important use case for Kubernetes users who have multiple clusters. We started addressing this with multi-cluster services, but that very much focused on, and we even said at the time, this very much focuses on stateless. And now we're introducing stateful to the story. I think that makes sense. We depend on this, and it's basically us just saying, here, we have a real use case. So SIG apps, you can feel good about this. It's not just some feature we're putting in so somebody can go off and do something in the shadows, right? That's my interpretation. Peter, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So I think, what the main thing, like, request we're asking for is the support for this use case, and kind of the, if we do get any pushback from SIG apps regarding, like, this feature in isolation or this feature not being extensible or something, like having SIG Multicluster back us up in terms of like the larger benefit to the Kubernetes ecosystem with this feature.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense to me. This sounds different than like last time, Paul, we went through this was when we were originally thinking about like changing kubeproxy with MCS, right? And
Yeah.
there was more pushback, but that was to me very different. That was us actually being the drivers of the change versus just like piling on basically as use cases.
Yeah. Corroborating the legitimacy, right?
Exactly. We can do that. That's a much easier stance than being the drivers. And you know, I feel pretty good about it. I'm excited about this kind of change. I think Paul, you and I have been discussing for a while about like next big initiatives for the SIG, and
Yeah.
and stateful was definitely on that list.
Yeah, agree. What?
Just I wanted
Go ahead.
to pop in. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, act your hand.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to pop in. I think this is sort of circling more around like SIG apps being like sponsoring SIG from the perspective of the release process and release cycle. But if it was still on the table or desired for it to be SIG multi-cluster, just wanted to like comment some on what Paul, you were saying. I have some experience in this, just having been on the release team a couple times, of what the obligations are of the SIG regarding like submitting for the enhancement freeze, being kind of like the point person to make sure that the code freeze, docs freeze, any of the like testing issues, and like the where is it? PRR process is followed. All of those are also kind of shared load with like the release team, the sub teams that are in charge of each of those individual pieces of the process. But as like the SIG, the sponsoring SIG, then there's also kind of like a shared burden of that here too. So yeah, but that's kind of like a little gist of like some of the concrete things that I think we would be obligated to help with if for any reason it is decided or desired for SIG multicluster to be the like official, you know, stamped on the thing, folks. And happy to share more of my experience about that as it becomes relevant.
That will be very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Laura.
Cool. Yeah, so I guess what I'm hearing is, you know, I did change the cap over to be under SIG multicluster. So I'm kind of wondering, like, what do the mechanics look like? You know, is like, are the leads comfortable with that, or should it change it back to SIG apps and request for opt-in, lead opt-in from SIG apps?
I think what matters the most to me personally is not necessarily which SIG is indicated on here, but like making sure that someone authoritative from SIG apps puts a comment onto this pull request for the KEP, making sure that it's clear that they've seen it and that they're supportive of it. That would what's my gut feeling is. I don't know about Jeremy or Laura. What do you think?
100% agree. Yeah, like I don't think the folder and the owning SIG matters as much as the fact that the right people are actually looking at it. And, you know, I know you've tagged the correct participating SIGs. Let's just make sure that we have representatives from those SIGs as approvers.
Okay.
To me, that seems like that covers our bases. Laura, does that align with your thoughts?
Yes, and I think, you know, I mean, I'm sure variations exist, but being under the SIG multi-cluster KEPs implies that the SIG multi-cluster chairs will be the ones who do like the opt-in for enhancements freeze that Peter is talking about. So I think that step, we should make sure we know who's doing that. But yeah, I think it's since anything in SIG multi-cluster is ultimately cross SIG, like I've experienced this even with outside of KK caps here. But yeah, I think a lot of transparency in this group and on the PR and in like that approvers and reviewers matrix in the cap.yaml of like who actually needs to sign off on this, and getting attention on that early is like the thing that's going to prevent this from getting like gunked up. And then, yeah, I think if Jeremy and Paul / I'm also happy to help into is cool with aligning with the release cycle this round and opting this into the enhancement freeze this time, then we can totally do that.
Okay, yeah,
Okey-dokes.
this sounds great to me. You know, getting opt-in from SIG multi-cluster leads, and then we'll work on drumming of support and SIG apps and getting visibility from those folks.
Awesome. I guess since your timeline is relatively short, I will volunteer to be someone you can badger to make progress and get things done.
Awesome, thanks, Jeremy.
Do we know what the, does anybody happen to know off the top of their head what the actual timeline is for having this enhancement accepted for the release?
I think it's September 30th.
Okay. Cool.
All right, it is.
Sweet. All right. Sounds like we have stuff to do.
Exciting. It's really awesome to see some progress in this area. Yeah, I can't wait. Let's hope we can get it in.
+1.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Seems like we're talked through for now. Everybody have a great rest of your Tuesday. And Peter, and I think it was it Alexis? We can reach out to you about next steps on TEP 3335.
Great. Thanks so much.
Okie doke. Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Have a great day.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.